everyone, welcome to Watch It Paint It Down. Today I'm going to be painting another model from Fireteam Zero by Emergent Games. This game's still on Kickstarter. This is going to be the last tutorial I do before the Kickstarter ends. It's completely funded. If you've not checked it out, I'll put a link in the description below and go and have a look at it. So the model I'm painting today is a boss from the game, boss creature, and this is Blacktooth. This is the art for him. As you can see, it's quite hard to tell what he looks like from the art, so that's good in a few ways, bad in another. Good that I can do whatever I want and you guys won't actually be able to tell that I've done it wrong. Bad if you need inspiration like I often do. It's quite difficult to see in the art. So that means this tutorial could be really helpful for once and help anybody with no idea what they're doing. And equally, if you just like doing whatever you want, you can go to town and nobody can really tell you it doesn't look like the art. So I'm just showing off the model a little bit here in case you're not familiar with the game. And this is what it looks like, a big ass scary monster plant thing. So he's pretty good with a cool 3D base. So I've not primed this and I'm going to use Vallejo's colour game colour and go straight in and use that as both the base coat and the primer. So we're starting with charred brown. I'm using a large brush. This is one of that Quickdraw Supplies kindly supplied to me. I'm still testing these out. I may do a review in the future. It's my biggest brush other than that massive one that they sent, which would be overkill on this. So I'm just painting all of the tree parts of the model here with this charred brown. So that's all of his legs and his arms. Now I'm not taking much care because I'm going to be painting most of the model brown, so moving on to the next colour, and that's tan. And this is a lighter, more tan coloured brown though, nevertheless. And here I'm just painting on some of these parts of the monster. I think I'm going to find it very difficult to describe which bits it is, but all of these sorts of shell sorts of shapes, like the sort of fungus that's growing from the tree, or maybe the alien stuff that's inside the monster that's sort of coming out. I'm also doing his tongs, his 3 tongs coming out of his mouth there in the same colour. So hopefully you can see that the things that I'm painting, it's easiest to describe. And I'm sort of going with a Venus flytrap sort of look and feel here. So I'm going for that reddy tan and then moving on to this yellow olive, which is actually quite a dark green. And for that I'm just painting this plant bumpy part at the top of the model. These descriptions are going to be classic, but that's the only bit I'm doing in the green on the monster. I'm just going to do those plant parts on the base. The base was also coloured just charred brown, the same as the monster. I think the video skipped on from that part so you didn't see, but I'm just going back and painting these plant spore things that are on this 3D base. First 3D base I've ever printed. I quite like it. It makes the base look as cool as the model. And that's the base coat done. That's all I'm going to do. Just make him look like a plant to some extent. And then I'm going to take my deep shader by the Army Painter, and I'm just going to use the big brush that I've got. Not quite the biggest. I've just gone down a little bit just so I don't soak it in shader. But I'm just going to cover the whole model, including the base, with this deep shader. Once that's dried, I'm going to go on to some highlighting, and I'm going to be taking Boney spikes by the Army Painter, and this is to paint on some fungus. So it's that sort of tree fungus. Hopefully you've all seen that before. I'm trying to show a little picture there, just so you can see what effect I'm going for. And he's got these sorts of bumps all over the tree part, all over his legs really, a little bit on his chest and his feet. So I'm just painting in some bright bony spikes to represent that. Just finding every bump I can. And you'd have to do the same on the model, just find where you can see them. It's mainly on his buttock and his back of his legs there. I'm then going to use Zombie Shader by the Army Painter, and that's just a lighter brown shader, and that's just to dull that down a little bit because it was ever so bright, and I just want to take the edge off of it slightly. So once that's done, I'm going to take charred brown, mix it with Beasty brown, 50-50, both by Vallejo, and this is the highlighting for all of the tree parts, so mostly his legs, his arms, and his chest. So I'm using my regiment brush here, one of the biggest ones that I use, and I'm taking some care, but I'm not minding too much. It's blending very, very easily. All the models, mostly these browns, and as long as I'm catching the top, I'm fairly happy with it. I'm being very, very quick as well here, and I think you can see that that's coming out, and he's looking like he's highlighted already. I'm going to do another highlight after this, so that's another reason not to be too careful. I'm painting on quite thick lines so I can add the next highlight on top. And for this I'm going to be using the 1/8 brush, 1/8 brush by ProArt. This was supplied by Quickdraw Supplies as well. I'll put a link to them in the description below. And I'm just dry brushing. I think this might be my new favourite dry brush. I love the Army Painter one, and I don't know if it's just I've had it too long and it's not, you know, all the bristles are sticking out each and every direction, or or if this is just that much better. But I'm really, really enjoying it. I've used it a few times now, and so far I love it. I mean, I will do a review at some point on it, but I want to try it out a fair few times. So I'm going to do the same with tan. So I'm going to take tan and just apply that dry brushed on all the tanned areas. That's his tongs and these lumps and bumps on his body, these like shell-like looking fungus things. So just taking my time on his tongue, just being very, very careful because it's quite detailed there, and I don't want to get any of the bright tan in any of the recesses which I've shaded previously. I do not shave his recesses, believe me. And then I'm going to do the same on all of these spiked shells. And at this point you can start to see them kind of pop and really stand out and add a feature to the model which would otherwise be quite brown, quite dull. But this especially against the charred brown, this does start to pop and stand out as a colour in its own right. So just, yep, taking my time, trying to show you a bit of the dry brushing technique if you're not used to it, just scraping off all that paint that I put on a paper towel and just applying the smallest amount possible. Yellow Olives Back by Vallejo, and this is just to highlight back up the green that I painted in on both the base and that big round spotty bit on his head. So I'm just painting all the big spots on the plants. I'm using my regiment brush here and applying quite a big blob, watered down, getting it to flow very quickly and very nicely on all of these elements. And then on this spore on his head, I'm just painting each one of those sort of pimples in this green, covering most of the area, just trying to leave the edge darker around where that shader got into the recesses. I'm then going to take some Goblin green and mix that with that yellow olive, 50-50, both by Vallejo, just making a brighter green for myself of the same tone. I'm using my detail brush now. I want to apply less paint, and I'm just painting a little sort of dark little circle at each one of those pimples on him, and really making those stand out and pop from the dark green behind them. And especially at a distance, that's going to look really, really good on the table. I'm going to do exactly the same to all those plants on the bottom, just a little bit faster because I don't care as much about the base, but I'm catching all of the edges as well. That there's some edges to those plants as well as the like pimples on each little blob on those plants. So you can see that's coming along, and that's plants looking nice and 3D realistic down there. Tan's back out now. I'm using my detail brush here. I'm just applying, instead of dry brushing, I'm just applying a little dot on the tips of everything, all those spikes, the tip of the edge of all those ridges, and the ends of his tongs. I put a dot on each tip, and then I'm blending it back. After that, I'm going to use some Boney spikes again, mixed with white primer, 50-50. So that Boney spikes by the Army Painter, and that's white primer by Vallejo. Just lightening it up. Any white would have done. And then I'm using my detail brush and just dabbing a teeny tiny bit on each edge or middle, depending if it's sort of a raised area or a flat blob, and just making that look more realistic and highlighted towards where the light would be hitting the edge of each of those fungus bits. Yeah, fungi bits. Is anyone else getting hungry? I could really do a pizza right now. Anyway, so that's the model sort of finished. I thought I'd take a minute to show it you now because you could easily stop here. That is how I would often finish my models. I thought I'd show it before I go on to what I'm going to do next in case I ruined it, because then I could have avoided wasting our time seeing me ruin a model. So next I'm going to add some glistening blood. This is the kind of glossy, wet looking blood that the Army Painter provided. I thought I was just trying to add a little bit of colour. I mean, by the end of the model, once you've highlighted it up, I thought it did look quite good, quite colourful, but it's still a little bit drab. It's quite dark colours in my opinion, so I thought a little bit of blood make him look terrifying as well. So I'm bloodying up, as you saw, his tongs there, his hand, as though he's grabbed and murderized somebody, and then I put a little bit on those spikes on his legs as well, because he might have impaled somebody at some point, and that's what it looks like there. So again, I'm just showing you what it looks like, because you could finish here if you wanted, or also just covering myself in case on the next bit I just destroy the model, because I've never done the next bit before in my life, and I thought I would try and add some snow. So as you saw in the picture at the beginning, this was a snow-based game, snow-based monster. He's fighting in a blizzard. And with the 3D base, I thought it'd be awesome to get some snow on there as well. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a Pringles lid, as I often do in a lot of my videos. I'm going to take some PVA glue. This is by Great Expressions, but it could be any glue. This is not expensive glue. Just grab some. And I'm going to take 33% of that. I'm going to mix these three parts, a third each. So get a blob of glue. I'm going to use Vallejo's white primer, just their white. If I had any cheap acrylic white, I'd just use that instead. But again, 33%, a third of that. And then I've been to Hobbycraft. That's what gave me the idea. I was just in Hobbycraft and saw some artificial snow because Christmas is coming. And I just bought this, thought I'd give it a try. So, and 33%, another third of that. So put that on there, like so. And then I just take a cheap brush because I don't want to ruin any of my super duper brushes, and I'm just mixing all of that together thoroughly until all the glue, the white and the snow is mixed. And then I'm going to try and apply that to the base very, very carefully. Oh, that was close. So I'm just sort of, this is quite hard to work with. I don't know, maybe I made it too thick or too much snow, or who knows, but maybe it's just difficult to work with no matter what you do. But I am just getting it on there, so I'm sort of trying to scrape it off the brush onto the model. I'm using the fact that it's a 3D base and it's got ridges in, sort of trying to scrape the paint, the snow, the basing against that ridge in the base and drag it off of the brush onto the model. And then from there, I'm going to just sort of work it in with the brush, so spread it around exactly where I want it. So with the base, I'm trying to go around and get all of the sort of crevices where I think, so I don't want to paint the whole base in snow. I think that'll look bad, and also what a sad amount of time I would have wasted already making the base look quite good. So I'm just gonna, it's difficult to see in the video, but there's quite a lot of big dints in the base where the ground's very uneven. So I'm trying to get this snow and just put it into the deepest parts of the base where I think the snow would have settled and would melt slower than the raised parts where the sun would be hitting it. Sort of just like highlighting a model, except I'm using the snow as the shader. I'm trying to get it into all the recesses, all the nooks and crannies where the sun wouldn't be hitting and melting the snow. So just working that into the base, and you'll have to let me know in the comments below if you like how this looks by the end. I might make this into a separate tutorial. I know a lot of people might not watch this video if they're not interested in the game, but this technique might be quite cool for people. So I'm just using the back of the brush there just to pat it down and flatten it out and make it look more like the snow settled a while ago. I'm not going for like a new snow look so much as melty, been there for a few days snow. So I'm just working that in now, flattening it down as best I can. After that's done, I'm just going to take a little bit more of this artificial snow, just pouring it onto my table there so you can see, and then I'm just going to get a little pinch of that basically and sprinkle a little bit on into each patch just to give it that when you look at snow it sort of glistens. So this is clear and sparkly to some extent. I think it makes it look that little bit more realistic. I've practiced this a few times on some old bases that I had just lying around to see what technique I thought looked best, but this is the first time I've done it in anger and the first time there's a model in the way as well. So I'm just using charred brown now and just touching back up around the snow where it's just looking like gluey white stuff has been put on the base. I'm not too fussed if I catch some of the edges of the snow because, as I've mentioned, I'm going for like a sort of melty into the mud look. After that, I am going to take the deep shader again, and I'm very, very carefully with my regiment brush, I'm going to be applying it and letting it soak into the very edges of each of the snow blobs. I'm also just touching up the plants there where some of the snow had caught, so I'm just darkening that back down using the shader. So this bit is quite slow. I do want to be very careful. I'm sort of trying to put the shader away from the snow and just have it run and seep under, like how I think it would realistically look, like the dirt's seeping through from below, the snow's melting into the dirt, not like there's a layer of dirt on top of the snow afterwards, which in some extent might be realistic as well. Creatures, big scary plant monsters might have walked on all of this. I was tempted to try and put some footprints in the snow as well, but I think that was a bit beyond me at this point, but maybe I'll do it in the future, who knows. You have to let me know what you think of the snow first and whether I've just wasted my time. This did take quite a long time, especially compared to the rest of the model. So I'm just also picking out some of the thinner parts where the base is raised below and just shading those as well, letting that seep under the snow. And that is him finished. Now, this is the final time I will show you. I'm not tweaking him anymore. It took 1 hour and 24, that's including the snow. Which is pretty good, but obviously if I just painted him brown and highlighted him up much like Splinter Fiend, he would have been a lot faster. But I am very happy with that snow effect. I think it adds a little bit to the model. It's really bright, he pops on the board, and the blood is also very, very nice looking, especially on his hand. I'm really, really happy with that. So let me know in the comments below what you thought of the model, how I've done, and who you'd like to see next from this game. Thank you all very much for watching.